Good morning, Big Dog Brett. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in today. A very early version after the University of Georgia Bulldogs wins the 2023 National Championship and becomes the back-to-back champions. Wow, what an exciting game if you were a Georgia fan, at least most of the way through the first quarter. This was an absolute demolishment of TCU. There really didn't seem to be any opportunity for them in this game after the first quarter. The total score ended up being 65-7. Georgia scores, which is odd to say, but 9 touchdowns and 1 field goal. We did miss a PAT though, however. TCU was just not able to keep up with the Georgia Bulldogs, and some people would argue it was talent level, but it was pretty clear Georgia had an absolutely dominant performance on both the coaching aspect and the talent aspect. Georgia was physical all night. Hats off to TCU and those players. They fought their tails off the entire game. They really wanted to perform better than they did. I know they wanted to win that national championship, but unfortunately, it was just not in the cards for them. There was a couple of little interesting things that happened during the game. I noticed at the end of the game that it actually started to rain inside on the field, which was really odd because this was supposed to be a covered field. It's not a traditional dome per se, but it is supposed to be enclosed. Also found out that there was a possibility that there could have been a lightning delay because of the proximity, because of the way the field is. If there would have been a lightning strike in proximity of 6 miles, they would have had a lightning delay. Thank goodness that didn't happen. But wow, what a game. Lots to talk about in this game. Javon Bullard, wow, I think he had 2 pick six and a fumble recovery. Just an absolutely dynamic performance. Ladd McConkey had a great game as well. It was really nice to see Darnell Washington back out on the field. Had some concerns about his health as well. Same with Ladd McConkey. Glad to see him out on the field and performing well. Stetson Bennett, however, though, man, talk about the way to put an exclamation point at not only the end of a season and not only a national championship, but the end of your career as a Georgia Bulldog. Stetson Bennett comes out gunslinging, throwing dimes everywhere, all over the field, and running the ball. It was pretty clear that TCU was completely out of their element and overwhelmed by the Georgia Bulldogs. I think Max Duggan ended up with negative 38 rushing yards, which I think brought the team total down to like 40 something or another. I think their total yards without his negative yards would have been mid 70s, low 80s, somewhere in there. Didn't have a phenomenal performance on his passing game either. I know that young man probably put a lot of that on his shoulders, but he really shouldn't. You got your team to a national championship. Super scrappy team. A lot of high energy players on that team, and they really came to play. They never hung their heads. It was just a big performance of their heart, but unfortunately they were outmatched. Nobody picked Georgia to win this game 65-7. Unless you were the most intense Georgia homer, and even most of us that are, still wasn't picking the game that way. My thought process was that Georgia was going to be somewhere around the 45 mark. I figured TCU would probably be somewhere around 17 to 21 points. But Georgia's defense absolutely lights out in this game. Dominant performance on defense. Probably one of the best I've ever seen. Certainly the best I've ever seen in a national championship game. The only points they scored was basically off of a busted coverage between Keely Ringo and Javon Bullard. After that play, Kirby Smart pulls both Keely Ringo and Bullard over to the side, and normally he is losing his mind. Normally he is just undone whenever mistakes are being made like that. That's not what he did this time. This time he actually pulled him over. He kind of huddled up with him, and he was very calm, and you could just tell he was telling these guys, hey, that's okay, don't worry about it. Just go get the next one. We've got this. We're good. Kirby Smart seemed very confident in this game. Seemed to have everything well buttoned up and put together. Todd Monken called an outstanding game on the offense as well. It seemed like every time Georgia wanted something, they went and got it. There was one fourth down, I think it was 4th and 5 or something, Well after the game was well out of hand. Georgia goes for it on 4th down and gets it. Of course, they go to Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers probably has the game of his life as well. Just 100-plus yards in receiving. I think he rushed the ball one time. Georgia had nearly, I think, 600 yards of offense or something like that. It might even been 700. It was absolutely insane. Do want to shout out to OSU. Those guys, there's going to be a lot of people out there who's talking about how OSU cost themselves a national championship game. Let's be abundantly clear. OSU did not cost themselves a national championship game. The Peach Bowl is a 4-quarter game, just like every other game out there. And so when you get down to the end of the game, what's the difference between a field goal in the last seconds and the 2 field goals that Jack Podlesny missed for UGA earlier in the game? There's no difference. Both of those are missed field goals. Georgia missed 2, they missed 1. So Georgia put 42 on the board, Ohio State put 41. And at the end of the day, that was enough. So they didn't cost themselves the national championship. They just flat got beat. Now, that having been said, if they would have made that field goal, I absolutely believe Ohio State would have boat raced TCU as well. They have a prolific offense, some of the best wide receivers in the country, and you saw what they did to Georgia. So, but last night was all about putting a big statement on the field that Georgia's not going anywhere. There's a ton of players from this team that are going to be back next year. Georgia's not going to lose 15 people to the draft. We got to see Carson Beck come in at the end of the game. That's going to be your quarterback for next year. Guy threw a couple of really nice passes. You can just tell he's ready. He's prepared. He looked good. Granted, it was, kind of mop-up time, but I think Branson Robinson even got a touchdown. A freshman. How often does that happen? True freshman gets a rushing touchdown in a national championship game. Absolutely incredible. Georgia, I think, got everybody that they could out on that field to get some snaps in this game, just to let those guys play in a natty. Incredible performance. Some people may be asking why Kirby Smart, wanted to hang 60 plus on this team. Well, part of it is that I don't know that TCU could have stopped Georgia even if we had not have tried to go out there and be as physical and dominant as we were. I think part of it is that statement of he doesn't want to be hunted. He's not going to be hunted. He's going to hunt. And that was exactly the case. Georgia didn't go out there to defend a national title. They went out there to win a national title. And that's a big difference between what some teams do and what Georgia was able to do. Currently it's about 7:25 in the morning. Sun's coming up. It's a clear day here in Georgia. It's about 35 degrees. A little brisk, but there's going to be a lot of celebration, a lot of tired Dawgs fans today. As that sun comes up over the horizon, you're going to see a lot of people are going to try and get through their day. If you get an opportunity, go over and look at Dog Post. They have a new book out called, I think it's called Double Dogs. So I'm going to reach out to Dean Legge and see if we can preview that book for you guys, get some insight. I'm sure we'll be able to get more information about it here pretty soon. But they were out there. They had a great time. Got some information from those guys. They posted a video 3 hours ago, I think it was. Wow. So what an awesome performance by UGA. Now, as far as the fans go, looking at the cameras, it really looked like that stadium was about 75% Dawgs fans. I'll have to ask Dean what it was like in person, but it really seemed to be predominantly Georgia fans, which is understandable. Georgia has a much larger fan base than TCU. Even if you had fans that were from the state of Texas that weren't necessarily TCU's primarily, and they were pulling for TCU because they're from Texas. It really seemed to me that the Georgia fans traveled extremely well. They went out there, they represented our team in California, got a big win. For those of you who don't know, UGA 10 did not make the trip. This was due to his age. They said he's 9.5 years old. They didn't want to do that to him. If you don't know much about English Bulldogs, 9.5 is getting up there. they have a lifespan of about 10 to 12 years as a max. So he's kind of a senior citizen at this point. But he's the only UGA to ever win 2 national championships. He's also the only one to win a back-to-back. We don't know if he's going to retire this year or next year, but it's certainly a possibility. Now, what else went on with this game? Well, let's see. Other than Georgia absolutely demolishing TCU, other than Georgia doing whatever it wanted to on offense and whatever it wanted to on defense, it was pretty easy to see that Kirby Smart was making a statement when it came to the recruiting side of things. He can now go out and say the last time that anybody won back-to-back national championships was Nick Saban in 2012, 11 and 12. And forgive me if I get a year or something wrong on that, but it was somewhere around that time. Also, there's only been 3 teams to ever pull perfection. And that was, of course, Georgia, and then LSU, and Clemson. If Georgia can win a national championship after losing 15 players in the draft, I'm really curious as to what Georgia's going to look like next year. It's going to be hard to sit down and come up with a preseason top 5, never mind a top 10, but you're looking at a team that is returning a lot of their key players. One of those players being Brock Bowers, absolutely electric. He seems to be getting better and better. We are losing some guys. I think Chris Smith's going off to the NFL. I'm pretty sure when you want to look at players going to the NFL, there's going to be some debate about this. We can fight about it, but I'm going to be honest with you. You got to show me something other than the fact that Stetson Bennett's not 6 foot tall as to why he won't go to the NFL. Back-to-back national championships, performance of a lifetime, 4,000-yard plus passer, surpasses Aaron Murray for all-time passing yards in a single season for UGA. I don't know about passing attempts. I'll have to look that one up. But, I mean, wow, what a performance. And continued performance. He plays well under pressure, clearly plays well in an NFL-style offense. He's going to get drafted. I don't know if it'll be first round, but I'm pretty sure he'll go at least in the second round. So Georgia will have some talent that'll leave this year. Jalen Carter, I'm sure, will go. Nolan Smith, we know he's going. If Jalen Carter goes, he'll be a first rounder. He may choose to come back. I think he can come back. I'll have to double check on that. But if he does come back, it's going to be scary. Okay. Talking about Jalen Carter, in the national championship game, it was pretty clear after the first 2 or 3 drives that they were going to let TCU do whatever they wanted. TCU was holding Georgia. TCU was pass interference. I think there was one pass interference called all night. Absolutely terrible. And hats off to TCU. I'm not mad at them for doing it. If the ref's going to let you get away with it, do it, because that's the way it goes. If the referee doesn't see a problem, you shouldn't either. I think there was maybe 1, maybe 2 passes all night that if the Georgia receiver wasn't wide open, that they didn't get pass interfered on, in my opinion, and yes, I'm being dramatic, but it was pretty bad. There were a couple of times that some I think it was like 2 holding calls got called against TCU, should have been called a lot more. Jalen Carter is getting assaulted. And I think one time he finally had enough and he just pancaked the guy to the ground. But it really is what it is at this point. It's hard to complain about winning a game like that, but it's not a complaint. It's more of a point of emphasis that we really need to do a better job with our officiating in these games. Granted, officiating in this game didn't determine the score, didn't change the score, didn't affect the outcome of the game, but it doesn't mean that these players and fans deserve less than the best officiating we can get. If we expect the best out of our players, coaches, and fans, it's only fair to expect it out of the referees as well. So, that having been said, beautiful morning this morning in Atlanta, Georgia. Driving into the city, passing Truist Park right now, and it's just a wonderful day to be a Georgia Bulldog. Hats off to the 2023 and 22 back-to-back national championships, my Georgia Bulldogs. I want to really say I appreciate you guys being here. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and oh yeah, you can share as well. And don't forget, Have a great day. God bless. Go Dogs.